In a picture-perfect Connecticut neighborhood lined with white picket fences and manicured lawns, a dark secret was festering behind closed doors. Neighbors waved, children played, and one man, always polite and helpful, blended in like any loving father or devoted friend. But beneath his charming exterior lived something far more sinister, a monstrous hunger that would shock the world and forever scar a quiet community. This is the story of the Cannibal in Connecticut, a man whose double life redefined what it means to truly not know your neighbor. Before we dive into this chilling case, don't forget to subscribe to True Crime Hub, where the truth hides behind the most ordinary faces. Hit the bell so you never miss a twist like this one. It was the kind of neighborhood people moved to for peace, a cul-de-sac in Newtown, Connecticut, with tree-lined streets, friendly cookouts, and children's laughter echoing in the yards. No one suspected evil could thrive here. In the middle of this serene setting lived Richard Chasewell, a mid-40s single father, former military, local handyman, and beloved by many. He fixed neighbors' plumbing without charge, helped elderly residents with groceries, and organized weekend barbecues. No criminal record, no complaints, just a helpful, quiet man living alone with his teenage son. He was the guy you trusted with your spare keys, one neighbor recalled. If something broke in your home, he was there in 10 minutes. But nobody knew what was buried beneath his garden, or locked inside his basement freezer. Tone begins to shift subtly. Start adding eerie background music. In mid-2021, whispers began to circulate. Small things. A pet cat gone missing. A smell coming from Richard's backyard. Rumors, dismissed as nothing. After all, he was Richard. He didn't even drink. Then came Amy Geller's disappearance. Amy, a 28-year-old door-to-door saleswoman, was last seen walking down Chasewell's street. Her van was found parked neatly 3 blocks away, her keys still in the ignition. No signs of a struggle. No leads. Surveillance footage from a nearby porch camera showed Amy chatting with Richard briefly. Nothing unusual, until investigators reviewed it frame by frame and noticed the subtle shift in Amy's posture. Her smile faded. Her stance stiffened. She was never seen again. Now shift the mood with darker lighting and visuals. Start building tension. Richard's own teenage son, Eli, began to speak out, quietly at first. At school, he confided in a counselor that his dad sometimes locked the basement and wouldn't come back up for hours. He heard muffled sounds, like sobbing, or worse. Eli said he once saw his father dragging a heavy black bag into the garage. When he asked what it was, Richard's only answer was, "Some things are better not known, son." But no one followed up on Eli's reports. His father was known. He was trusted, a community blindfolded by his charm. And in the dark of the basement, something was happening. Neighbors eventually called the police, not because of Amy, but because of the smell. A stench that seeped through the wooden slats of Richard's fence. It was thick, metallic, like old blood and spoiled meat. He blamed it on a broken freezer. Said he'd fix it. When officers came to check, Richard was calm. Polite. Offered them coffee. Let them inspect, everything but the basement. "There's nothing to see down there," he chuckled. "Just old tools and mold." They left. 2 weeks later, another woman vanished, 34-year-old jogger Jessica Lantham. Her last known location? Running past Richard Chasewell's house. The neighborhood that once felt safe, now pulsed with fear. Eli couldn't hold it in anymore. After a school assembly on safety at home, he walked straight to the school's resource officer and said 8 words that would change everything. "My dad keeps body parts in our freezer." Police returned, this time with a warrant. They opened the freezer. What they found was beyond imagination. Inside the chest freezer were several vacuum-sealed bags, labeled not by date or content, but by name. Amy, Jessica, unknown female, a partial. The contents were unmistakably human. Forensic tests confirmed the unimaginable. Flesh stripped, seasoned, and stored like butchered meat. Next to the freezer was a journal. And what was inside it was even worse. Richard's handwritten journal wasn't a confession. It was a recipe book. Mixed in with personal musings were detailed entries titled, "Thigh, pan sear with rosemary. Ribs, smoke low, serve with red wine. Eli doesn't know, must keep secret." The journal described hunting, luring, killing, and consuming, with no remorse. It was methodical. Proud. He detailed what he called the transformation from man to God, from meat consumer to meat creator. Psychiatrists would later call this journal the most deeply disturbing document in modern American crime history. What led a seemingly normal man, a beloved neighbor, a father, to turn into one of the most shocking predators in American true crime history. How long had he been hiding in plain sight? And how deep does the darkness go? We're just getting started. If you haven't subscribed yet, hit that button now, because the story only gets darker from here. Let's continue. The headlines exploded. Cannibal killer in Connecticut suburb. Neighbor from hell, father, friend. Monster. Human flesh found in suburban freezer. News vans swarmed the sleepy neighborhood. Neighbors wept on camera, clutching their children. People questioned how they missed the signs, how someone like Richard could live among them, wave hello, and host parties, while storing human remains feet away from the grill. More victims were identified through DNA and missing persons databases. In total, police confirmed 6 women, all local, all reported missing over the past 4 years, had been found in pieces. But the question that kept echoing in every interview was, what about his son? Eli Chasewell, now 17, took the stand. Pale, shaking, his voice cracked as he described the years he spent in fear. He'd bring home meat and say it was dear. He never let me in the freezer. When I asked why they were missing people on the news, he'd say the world was dangerous. Eli admitted he suspected something, but couldn't comprehend this. He also shared how his father kept him quiet. Threats of being taken away by CPS. Manipulation, guilt. The phrase he never forgot. If anyone finds out, we'll both disappear. Richard underwent a full psychiatric evaluation. The results chilled even seasoned professionals. He wasn't psychotic. He wasn't hearing voices. He was fully aware, calculated, and cold. Diagnosed with antisocial personality disorder and paraphilic cannibalistic fetishes, he told psychiatrists. It started as curiosity. I read about it. Then I wanted to know. I thought, what if the forbidden thing is the truest experience? Most people are too scared to become gods. He said consuming people gave him power. That he felt closest to them when they were part of him. Courtroom seats were filled daily. Journalists flew in from across the country. Victims' families sat clutching tissues. And Richard Chasewell sat smiling. The prosecution presented DNA results from his freezer. Surveillance footage of Amy and Jessica. Handwritten journal entries detailing each murder. Tools used for dismemberment. Photos of the sealed basement room, covered in plastic sheets and hooks. But the defense tried to claim diminished responsibility. That he had suffered trauma from his military service. That he had snapped, until Eli's testimony shattered that idea. He wasn't crazy. He was proud of what he did. He told me it was art. On the 22nd day of trial, the jury deliberated just 6 hours. Guilty, on all counts. 6 counts of first-degree murder, abuse of a corpse, obstruction of justice, and the addition of aggravated cannibalism, newly passed by emergency state legislation during the case. He was sentenced to 6 consecutive life sentences without the possibility of parole. When asked if he had final words, Richard stood and said, "The world will forget the victims, but they'll never forget me. That's immortality." He was escorted out, still grinning. The families of the victims held a community vigil. White balloons were released. Each balloon bore a name: Amy, Jessica, Lena, Carly, Danielle. Unknown. Eli was placed under protective custody and later adopted by a family member. He's changed his name and now speaks at schools about recognizing red flags in behavior, even in those closest to us. The neighborhood. Most residents moved out. The house was demolished by court order. A memorial garden now grows where it once stood. But the question still lingers. Experts dissected the case for months. How did someone like Richard go undetected? Left-pointing magnifying glass their key reasons. No criminal history. Charismatic demeanor. Isolation tactics. Basement access. Social control. Community trust bias. He looks normal. Victims targeted from marginalized or vulnerable populations. Dr. Meredith Fields, a forensic psychologist, noted. People think monsters look like monsters, but the worst ones are hiding behind smiles. This case changed how Connecticut law views in-home checks and spurred national debates on hidden psychopathy. In 2024, audio tapes were leaked of Richard speaking to a prison therapist. "I still dream about the meals. Not the killing, that was necessity. But the meal, the texture, that was pleasure. You think prison stops desire? I relive every bite." The tapes triggered a renewed media frenzy. Public backlash forced the prison to isolate him indefinitely. He is now in permanent solitary confinement. Behind the white picket fences of America, evil doesn't always look like a monster. Sometimes, it looks like the guy next door, the one who smiles too much, helps too often, and hides his horrors too well. This wasn't just a story about a killer. It was a warning that the most dangerous evil is the kind that blends in. If this story moved you, share it. Let others know. Because when we see the signs, we save lives. Subscribe to True Crime Hub for more stories that reveal the darkest truths behind the safest doors.